Now, all those changes that we have been talking about here, I think you can derive them back to two rather simple but extremely powerful drivers. And basically it all began 1946, right after the Second World War. If you look at the statistics, in any country, in any part of the world, it's the same. Something began 1946. For some reason, we broke out of the nation state. We started to travel, send our kids abroad to study. We started to import. We started to export. We started to go on vacation abroad in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, depending on what country we are talking about. It goes like a hockey stick curve. Dramatic increase. Today, we would call that globalization. All those things, when you take them together, that's globalization. You know, import, export, traveling, it began 1946. Some of you, of us, are latecomers. We started in the 70s and the 80s. Let's call that force globalization. The second force is even more powerful. And in a way, we are here gathered together around that force. Information technology. Again, it began 1946. First small steps. You know, telephone, cross-Atlantic cable. You could make international phone calls. They were horrendously expensive, but at least you could do it. It was fantastic. And then came the first mobile phones. They were not very mobile, but they were phones, suitcases, you remember? And then came the fax machine, and then came the first version of internet, and look where we are now. Those two forces, information technology and globalization, explains almost all of the change that we have had over the last 60, 70 years. Soviet Union exists no more. Why? Because of information technology. Moscow could not control the information, and when you cannot control the information, you cannot control the people. And then it's over. All dictators know this. You have to control the information. Otherwise, you cannot control the people. This is step one in the handbook for dictators. You know this. Complete breakdown of the Soviet Union. All the low-cost airlines that you see here in Asia, in the US, in Europe, what is that? It's information technology. Of course it is. All the problems that we are struggling with in a number of industries. Don was talking about the media industry, newspapers, information technology. All the reforms that we make in education, information technology. Over and over again, those two forces. Now, those two forces have created a situation that is really interesting. And this is part fun, part very challenging, what I have here. Look, on one axis you have knowledge. However you measure knowledge, but just knowledge on one axis. On the other one, time. The green curve there is fun. And the little green guy there, that's you and me. What does that curve say? Listen, you and me are a little bit smarter than our parents. That's actually the case. For some reason, intelligence increases a little bit over time, generation after generation. We don't know why, but we can see that it increases a little bit, so your kids will probably, if you're lucky, be a little bit smarter than you. Okay? Right. Maybe it's because of, they practice more, they get more information. We cannot really explain this. This is the good news. Here comes the more challenging news. The other curve, the red one. What is that? It is all the information, all the knowledge, all the data, all the insights that we human beings have created ever on planet Earth. Can you see that? All of it. Can you see that that grows exponentially? Hockey stick. Do you know what that means? I tell you what that means in practice. It means that every morning when you wake up, you're a little bit more stupid. in relative terms, you know less, percentage-wise, of something that is growing very, very fast. Can you see that there is a huge gap? What is that gap? Well, that gap explains many of the things that Don Tapscott was talking about today. He said we have to redefine our institutions. We have to redefine government. We have to redefine universities. We have to redefine... Why? Because of that gap. Because we have to find strategies. No matter whether we are the central bank, represent the government, or a private institution, we have to find a strategy to close the gap. To close the gap.